As the search for bodies of victims of a Mokwa flood incident continues, 2 more bodies have been recovered today, June 3rd, down the Mokwa-Raba axis, bringing to 160 the total number of casualties recorded so far. The Acting Director General of the Niger State Emergency Management Agency, Ibrahim Hussaini, who made the confirmation, says the 2 bodies were that of children buried under tree debris. He adds that they employed the services of locals to help dig out corpses, while the search for more bodies continues.
Meanwhile, residents of Yola are calling on all tiers of government for urgent support to help them prepare for anticipated flooding in their communities. This follows a sensitization visit by the National Emergency Management Agency, that's NEMA, to flood-prone areas along riverbanks in Adamawa State. Samamu Dedan reports. All right, we'll bring you that story subsequently. Moving on now to other stories. The federal government has clarified the cause of the flood in Mokwa, Niger State, which has claimed more than 150 lives, stressing that the flood was as a result of heavy rainfall due to extreme weather conditions occasioned by climate change and not due to water release from either the Kainji or Jeba dams. Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Professor Joseph Utsev, made the clarification on Tuesday while addressing the journalists in Abuja. Well, the minister says an emerging global phenomenon which has overwhelmed local drainage systems plus unregulated human activities are also part of the causes of the flood. He explained that buildings were also impacted by the flooding.
I'd like to emphasize that the flood was not caused by water release from either the Kanji or Jeba dams, and that both dams are intact and safe. We have urged, and we are still urging states and local governments to act on these early warnings by 1, strengthening drainage infrastructure, relocating vulnerable communities from flood plains, engaging in sustained public awareness campaigns, and enforcing land use regulations to prevent encroachment into flood-prone areas. The AFO provides a comprehensive overview of the flood risk beyond the local government areas to actual communities, the potential flood-prone areas, expected flood levels, and recommended adaptation and mitigation measures to minimize flood impact, and also highlights how communities can adopt innovative approaches to reduce vulnerability.
Minister of Water Resources speaking there. Now, the Director of Planning Research and Statistics of the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, NISA, Awebi Joe Ukairo, joins us on the news tonight to provide an update on the recent flood incident in Mokwa and broader flood preparedness across the country. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight.
Thank you very much for having me here.
to have you.
Thank you.
So I think let's start with Mokwa, because I know that yearly you release these predictions, yet we have devastating outcomes. What happened? Are you able to reconcile how the science is there to prove it, but the reactions not so much?
First, I really want to thank you for having me here, and also to commiserate with the victims of the flood incident in Mokwa. We are really, really saddened by the incident, and as much as we predict, make our predictions, we really do not want to see the fatality that takes place as a result, of the event. And so we had predicted that it was going to flood in that area. In fact, we have what we call the flood dashboard, and on it, Mokwa was indicated to be at a high risk for flooding.
Unprecedented.
Yes, for between the April to June. And so what we are seeing was already predicted. And the alerts were there, the information was sent out like we usually would do, like you rightly pointed out. But unfortunately, in this particular incident, from my first, I want to actually appreciate the effort of my DG, who is unable to be here. He would have loved to be here to actually give information, on this particular incident. Right now, he went over to Mokwa to, assess the situation and also provide professional advice and counsel, to the government there. And so that's why he's unable to be here to personally, address this issue at this time. And so from the situation, on ground there, he had said that the flooding is as a result of anthropogenic activity, that is human contributed activity, in that area. There was a real construction that took place, and there is this river Dingi, there is a tributary to the river Niger. And so when this construction took place, it blocked the water flow path to the major river Niger, and over time built up ponds of water in that location. And the river embankment, a temporary embankment was made, and you know how water is, it will always find its way and it take its course. And so when this rain started on Wednesday, and it was intense, it went on for a longer time, and after, of course, the embankment had absorbed and soaked up and gave way. And because this construction had gone on there, it stopped the flow to the other side, which became like a reclaimed land, and people went in to build, houses, and, because the river was a seasonal river, and so people felt it was okay to live there. And that's why you're seeing the fatality, the number of fatal, cases that is there, because people began to inhabit the place, a lot of people. And so this is really a saddening situation for us. As much as we predict, we hope that people will heed to the prediction and take precaution so that we don't have what we have now.
Yeah, a really tragic situation, especially when you add to the fact that this are predicted, situation. So what efforts is your agency putting in place, whether as precautionary measures before the rains come in, before the floods, take over? What, mitigating measures do you actually put in place? That's number one. And for the rest of the country, what are the plans that are being put in place now, to prevent this situation, whether now or even next year? What are the practical steps that are being, measures that are in place now?
Our prediction, it's also a mitigation measure. So that's why we come out earlier in the year before the rain starts, and so, okay, this is going to happen, and we are expecting that the relevant organizations, sister organizations will, carry out like NOA, and enlighten the people to say this has come, the state government, the local government. And for NISA in particular, after this prediction, we go out to sensitize the community. Actually, for the first time, over 13 years that we have been carrying out this prediction after the unprecedented 2012 flooding in the country. So we now go to the communities and ask them, to keep sensitizing them. We conduct sensitization awareness campaign, engage in advocacy with the state governors, and make sure that the message is carried down to the community that are vulnerable, that are going to be impacted by this flooding. Particularly this year, for the first time. In the past, we will predict for the states, for the local governments, but this particular annual flood outlook went down to the communities in particular. So that is why you can see that we picked up this particular community as a high-risk, vulnerable community that is going to be impacted by flood, because we kind of categorize the flooding incidents across the country. We have the high-risk areas and the moderate areas. Mokwa was on high risk.
Indeed. Right. And that's speaking about your community-focused forecasting model, which is the first time. But I want to ask you, over 1,200 communities at high risk, more than 2,000 at moderate risk, and cities like Lagos and Abuja are being flagged. So I may be wrong, but this is like one of your most extensive alerts. What's driving this scale of alerts this time around? What's driving the scale of risk this year, 2025?
We will contribute some of these incidents to climate change events. You understand? Things are changing. The rain pattern is changing. The intensity of rainfall is changing. And, you know, we work with sister agency named NIMET. NIMET came out earlier with the seasonal climate prediction document highlighting on the intensity of rainfall, the areas that are going to, rainfall is going to take place. And so these information are out there for people to utilize. And so based on this scientific studies and research work that has gone on, so we are able to say that, of course, climate change is here and is real.
How much, sorry, just before
we have to wrap it now. Ukairo, Director of Planning.
How much of this is man-made? Because when she talked about Mokwa, she talked about the building of, in 20 seconds, if you can, please. How much of this risk are we saying that is man-made? I know you've talked about climate change, but how much of this is man-made? If you could give a percentage to this, let's know what we're dealing with. I
wouldn't want to drive into giving a percentage because it varies depending on the location. And for this particular case, we can attribute it to like over 60–70% man-made.
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much. I have to say thank you very much. Ukairo, Director of Planning, Research and Statistics, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, NISA. Thank you very much for joining us, and thanks for your work.